Against Rodrigo Damian Coria, the 25-year-old from Cordoba, Argentina. Last saw Coria dropping an 8-round unanimous decision to French contender Milan Prat in France in February of this year. Ortiz has been out of action since May of 2022. He scored a 10-round unanimous decision over Todd Manuel. He was dropped in the final round of that fight. And as always, when it comes to exhibition fights, Brock, we're trying to get a gauge early on as to what kind of exhibition fight is this going to be. Is this going to be only an exhibition bout in name where the fighters really go at it? Or are the fighters going to go through the motions?
Yeah, I'm trying to pinpoint this. Nobody's really throwing any hard shots as of yet. I see Coria land a couple of jabs, nothing significant. Maybe it'll pick up in the next couple of rounds.
Something we do see in exhibition bouts from time to time, which are also quite popular and have been for many, many years in Mexico, involving various Mexican boxing legends like Jorge Arce and Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. Sometimes you see the fighters kind of go through the motions until the final round.
Yes.
It's almost like exhibition tennis matches where they'll sort of mess around for a little while. They'll play out the last set. And we'll see if maybe that's what we'll see here between Ortiz and Coria.
Or the NBA All-Star game.
Yes.
Fourth quarter. Last few minutes, they go ham.
And as we're finding out right now, 2-minute rounds for this exhibition bout.
That was a quick round. They was just, you know, throwing soft punches, letting their hands go. I think Victor was kind of showing them, I don't probably have the hand speed you have, but I can pick my shots and land here and there and show you that I got a little more experience than you, young man. Coria land a nice straight left. Coria is literally the younger version of Victor Ortiz. Left-handed, hunched over, and in shape. I think they both landed a couple of straight lefts in that round.
It's round 2 underway. 8 2-minute rounds in this exhibition contest between Victor Ortiz.
Oh, Victor Ortiz, is he turning it up a little bit or what?
Yeah, turning up the temperature a little bit. Ortiz going downstairs to the body. Coria mentioned earlier this week that he's a little bit nervous fighting on a Floyd Mayweather undercard.
Oh. Sometimes fighters don't admit that.
Boxers. Most notably, Gonzalo Coria, who most famously fought Jaime Munguia back in 2022 in a tune-up bout of sorts for Munguia. And Rodrigo balances his boxing career with work outside of the ring, which has varied from a fire alarm installation man to carpentry and furniture making, and now as a truck driver. And the Corias have always had to balance work with professional boxing. His brother Gonzalo is the groundskeeper for their local football team back home. And that's because they've talked about the early stages of their career, building their record in Argentina, some of their early bouts. They were getting paid $6 US dollars per round. So having a second job was not a question. It was something they have always had to do.
Wow, and I understand where the nerves are coming from now. You go from that to fighting on Floyd Mayweather's undercard in an exhibition against a big name like Victor Ortiz. Even though this is not like a real fight, you're kind of auditioning.
Well, coming up next in Mexico City, Alan Picasso in a mouth-watering matchup against Azat Hovhannisyan, that in our co-feature. Alan Picasso, one of the bright young stars in Mexican boxing. We'll see if Crazy A can derail the hype train here tonight, as Victor Ortiz continues his comeback of sorts here tonight against Rodrigo Damian Coria. An 8-round exhibition contest. We mentioned earlier that Ortiz still has an actual pro fight on the schedule right now back home in his state of Kansas. That's still listed on BoxRec. He was still touting it on his Instagram. No word as to whether that's still actually going ahead, but it is an indication that Ortiz wants to still participate in true pro boxing matches even after this exhibition.
I think this is a good way for Ortiz to see. It's an indicator for him. Even though they're not going all out with their punches, he gets to get in the ring with a young version of himself. You know, a left-handed, fast fighter, strong fighter, you know, and see if he can still maybe be offensive and maybe even be defensive a little bit. And I think he'll still be ready for that fight next week.
Yeah, and to that point, Barack, you know, even if we're going at about 50%, maybe a little bit less than that, you're feeling some shots without headgear. You're seeing what your timing looks like. Are you seeing the shots well? So Ortiz will get an opportunity to see just how real this comeback can be as he goes through the motions here tonight.
And you're in front of a crowd. You know, you're doing all of those things you mentioned, and you're in front of the crowd, so you're getting that feel back.
Well, seconds of round 3.
Who would you have winning this fight if we were scoring this fight up to right now? Commercial saved you from answering that question, Corey. I'll let you slide on that one.
I might have this one scored for Rodrigo Damian Coria. How about you?
Same here, same here.
As Coria lands a nice left hand over the top.
I think the slaps are becoming a little bit harder. And they're fighting in the pocket right now. I think Coria initiated this.
If you're scoring this fight, and if you believe Coria is winning this fight, even though he's not the big name, it would make sense for that to be the case. He's the one who's been actively fighting, is clearly actively in camp. If this were a real fight and Coria is winning, shouldn't he be expected to be?
Oh, 100%. 12 years younger, active, absolutely. Faster. Definitely should be winning the battle of who could land the most punches, who could throw the most punches. But I kind of would like to see what would happen if, you know, if Victor Ortiz were to sit down on maybe 1 or 2 of his punches.
Okay. I thought you were building up to call for a rematch. I thought you were already setting people up for Ortiz-Coria 2.
No, not at all. Not at all. I thought this was like an audition for Ortiz for him to maybe fight Mayweather in a rematch.
Ortiz showing off a little head movement there, making Coria miss over the top. Ortiz fought 11 world champions during his career. Fought the best of the best presented to him during his prime. Looking to hold on and extend his career here in Mexico City. Coming up Saturday, September 14th, it is the big one. Canelo Alvarez putting all of his titles on the line against Edgar Berlanga, live from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Edgar Berlanga finally getting the opportunity that he's been calling for over the last couple years at the big fish in Canelo Alvarez.
Not too many landed shots in those combinations. But the ones that did land look like they came from Coria, with a couple from Victor Ortiz. So I guess the love handles won't go away by next week from Victor Ortiz. But can we knock some of this rust off maybe in 6 months out and see him again in the ring maybe?
Well, as we've been talking about, not only is this sort of an audition for him and his own skills, I'm sure, just to kind of get some of that timing down, it's also testing the waters of the public and their reaction. Is there a demand to see Victor Ortiz again? Do they want to see him in actual live competition? Is there any hunger at all to see him in an exhibition fight against Floyd Mayweather? I'm sure that's a part of this as well.
Good point. Because even in sparring, every fighter who's been at the top, you know, every great fighter who's past his prime can tell whether he still has it or not. And this right here is definitely a test, at least that will speak to Victor Ortiz. I think Victor Ortiz is hanging in there for 37 years old, been out of the ring for quite some time, a couple of years, 27 months maybe.
And it's easy to forget just what Victor Ortiz's peak was like. We mentioned all the world champions that he fought, but you know, being in the Expendables, being on Dancing with the Stars, being in Southpaw, I mean, this is someone who was on TV and movies, had major endorsements. Victor Ortiz's peak was very, very high.
Oh, he was, without becoming a champion, he was already like a Ryan Garcia of that time, you know, very, very popular without social media. You know, he was that guy. His trajectory was endless. Just defeats just took that away from him.
Get a 360 view of Arena Ciudad de Mexico in Mexico City as we look back at some of the work from Ortiz and Coria in the previous round.
Yeah, I see a slower Ortiz, you know, definitely slower than Coria, but I also see an Ortiz that's experienced and his punch placement is pretty smart in this at times when they run the inside. Like that left hook that was just landed by Ortiz years ago probably could have dropped any fighter. That's that looping left.
Brock, I believe you were in attendance for Ortiz-Berto 1, were you not?
Oh, absolutely.
What I mean...
Oh, absolutely, and it was an unbelievable night.
And just a fantastic fight. Obviously, Ring Magazine Fight of the Year that year.
Berto was undefeated that night, you know, coming into that fight. Mayweather was in the crowd. He was sitting over across from me with 50 Cent. I think Al Haymon was in attendance that night too. It was all designed for Berto to win, you know, or we thought Berto would win, but that was just a focused Victor Ortiz that night, and he was not losing.
I feel like you buried the lead there a little bit. Did you see Al Haymon in person that day? Did that happen?
I keep saying that Al Haymon was there, and I'm pretty sure I saw him.
There you go.
I've seen him a couple of times, you know, throughout my career in boxing. But I'm pretty sure I saw him. I was sitting ringside, but I was on the other side of the ring. I believe I saw him there.
Ortiz and Coria continuing to probe away.
Yes, he does exist, Corey, if you're asking.
I mean, I know he exists.
Al Haymon exists.
Well, the big fights keep on coming. A Riyadh season card, Wembley Stadium edition is heading to London for a huge September showdown as Anthony Joshua takes on fellow Brit Daniel Dubois, available worldwide on DAZN. As Crazy A, Azat Hovhannisyan gets warmed up for his co-feature against Alan Picasso, one of two men on this card with a Ring Magazine Fight of the Year on their mantle, one being Victor Ortiz.
What fight was that with Victor Ortiz?
That was the one you were at against Andre Berto. Round 7 continues. Coria putting a little bit more onto that left hand. And maybe this is when the gentleman's agreement to start throwing with a little more intent begins.
Maybe so. Oh, that was a good little counter by Victor Ortiz. Timing, experience.
Nice chopping shot there from Coria a moment ago. Ortiz putting a little more zip on that left hand that sails past the face of Coria.
I think Coria is being a little bit more defensive minded. Maybe Ortiz is putting a little bit more snap on his punches. Oh, giving him angles, giving the old man angles.
From Rodrigo Damian Coria.
I've always been a big Victor Ortiz fan. He's such a nice guy, so vicious in the ring. That was a perfect name for him.
That's right hook a moment ago there from Ortiz.
Ortiz fought a few rounds with a broken jaw against Josecito Lopez. Tough kid. Could never live down the Maidana fight. But I think he was a pretty tough kid.
Eighth and final round here between Victor Ortiz and Rodrigo Damian Coria. And there was a time, as we discussed earlier on in the broadcast, when Ortiz thought that he was going to be fighting Floyd Mayweather here tonight. There was a press conference back in May in Mexico City. Ortiz came all the way out here. That fight ultimately did not materialize, but Ortiz is fighting now on the undercard. And the former WBC welterweight champion dipping his toes back in the fighting waters for the first time since May of 2022.
Yeah, maybe they were just testing the waters with a name like a big name like Victor Ortiz. I say maybe if Victor Ortiz gets in shape, you know, does actually have another fight, maybe that could be something that sells somewhere. Floyd versus Victor Ortiz.
Saw a clash of heads a couple of moments ago. That won't be good for any potential comeback plans for Ortiz. Now, I don't notice any cut having developed from that. As we enter the final 30 seconds of this exhibition.
And if anything, this is where the fighters should turn it up, especially once they hear that 10-second clap. At least throw a few good hard shots.
It's a nice left hand down the middle from Ortiz. And that will do it.